take a deep breath and let yourself pause for just a moment before you continue with the rest of your day. If you happen to come across this message right now, it is not by accident or some random glitch in your feed. Something within you was searching for these words, and in a way that feels almost quiet and meant to be, it found its way back to you. Please stay with me for a little while as we talk about something that truly matters. I want you to think about that one special person who keeps appearing in your mind, and I want you to really let their face become clear to you right now. Take a second to notice what happens inside your chest when you picture them. There is that gentle pull, that mixture of warmth and longing, and something else you cannot quite name. That feeling is not confusion or a mistake. It is your heart recognizing something that your mind is still trying to catch up to. Because this person did not just stumble into your life by chance. On a level that goes much deeper than surface reality, something inside you already knows them very well. I understand how incredibly tiring it can be to carry a love this large when everything around it feels so unsteady. I know about those long nights when you lie awake holding all these feelings inside, wondering if you are reading too much into small signs or if any of it will actually result in the future you want. It does matter, and it matters a great deal. You are not being naive, you are not being silly, and you are definitely not being too emotional. You are simply a person standing in the middle of something that is going to become very meaningful in your life. That is the exact reason it feels so heavy and difficult right now. If you feel a deep connection to someone, even when the process feels painful and full of doubt, know that you are not alone in this. The power of these connections is that they do not just touch the surface of your life. They reach straight into the parts of your spirit that you have spent years trying to control, hide, or protect. Many people believe that love is supposed to arrive like a sense of relief, like finally reaching calm water after a long time of struggling to stay afloat. But the connections that truly transform us often arrive more like a storm before they bring us any sense of peace. They shake loose everything that was buried under your old ways of coping, your defenses, your pride, your fear, and all those habits you built just to survive. At first, that shaking can feel more like you are breaking apart than actually changing for the better. When someone enters your life and touches places that nobody else could reach, your old protective strategies stop working the way they used to. The person who always gave too much finally starts to realize how exhausted they are from constantly proving their value and sacrificing their own needs just to keep someone close. They begin to ask themselves why they ever believed that closeness had to be earned through endless labor and patience. This realization hurts because it forces them to look at the painful idea that they were taught love is not guaranteed just for simply existing. At the exact same time, the other person in this dynamic is facing their own terrifying reality of having survived by staying emotionally distant. For them, true closeness became linked to past pain, betrayal, or loss, causing their nervous system to view deep intimacy as a genuine danger. They pull back not because the connection lacks meaning, but because the intense feelings feel too big and uncontrollable for them to handle. On the surface, it looks like a mismatch situation where one person is chasing while the other creates distance and seems overwhelmed. Beneath the surface, it is actually just two wounded systems reacting in different ways to the exact same fear of being rejected or feeling like they are not enough. The person who pursues believes that love will vanish without constant effort, which makes any silence feel unbearable. But they have to learn that self-abandonment is too high a price to pay for any kind of connection. Their worth is not measured by how much pain they can tolerate for someone else, and the person who withdraws often carries the opposite wound. Somewhere inside them is the deep-seated belief that if someone gets too close, they will eventually lose themselves, disappoint the other person, or become trapped, so they instinctively create distance to stay safe. The moment things start to feel real, they pull away, yet that distance rarely brings them any peace. It usually brings them guilt, confusion, loneliness, and an even deeper awareness of how much they actually care. Avoiding openness protects them from rejection for a short time, but it also keeps them from receiving the love they have always secretly longed for. Healing is rarely a graceful process in the beginning. Sometimes it looks like total confusion, sometimes it looks like inconsistency, fear, emotional overwhelm, or long, painful periods of silence while someone tries to figure out who they really are. Growth often looks messy before it ever looks wise. Think of how a caterpillar has to completely dissolve inside its cocoon before it can become something new. Transformation has always required a kind of ending first. This is not about physical death, but about the ending of your old identities, your old defenses, and the old beliefs that simply cannot survive inside a deeper, truer love. That is why these connections can feel almost impossible to bear at times. They highlight all the contradictions within us. They show us how badly we want closeness while simultaneously showing us exactly how scared we are of it. They force us to see the difference between simple attachment and genuine love. Attachment tells you that you need someone else to complete what is missing inside of you. But genuine love eventually says that you want to meet the other person fully while also learning how to remain whole within yourself. And that specific change alters every single thing about how you relate to the world. But here is the part I really need you to hear clearly, because this is the piece that most people miss entirely. In every one of these connections there is a turning point. It does not arrive with a dramatic scene or a long, perfect conversation. It does not happen because they finally say exactly what you have been waiting to hear for months or years. It happens because of a decision you make quietly and firmly inside your own heart. It is the decision to stop waiting around to be chosen and to start genuinely choosing yourself instead. And when that shift finally happens, something in the whole dynamic begins to change. This is not because love operates like a piece of magic, but because the energy you bring into the space between two people carries weight. When you stop reaching towards someone from a place of fear or desperation or a need for them to save you, you stop being something they feel the urge to move away from. You reclaim your own space. And for maybe the first time, they are left sitting alone with what they actually feel about you. Not what they are afraid of, not the patterns they have been avoiding, but what is actually sitting in their heart. And I want you to trust that what is there has never truly gone away. Let me be honest with you about something, and I need you to actually sit with this thought instead of just reading past it quickly. Everything you have been through in this long, difficult waiting period, every single moment of it has meant something important. Not 1 second of your time has been thrown away. I know it feels that way sometimes. I know there are moments when you look back at all the love you have poured out, and you wonder if it just evaporated into empty air, if it landed anywhere at all, or if any of it was even worth the struggle. But I know for a fact that love does not just vanish into nothing. Every quiet evening you spent thinking of someone who is not sitting beside you, and every night you fall asleep holding onto those misplaced feelings, is not in vain. That love is real and it is active. It is shaping you and deepening you into someone who is actually capable of holding something truly extraordinary when it finally arrives. When you cry because something that feels so right is also causing you so much pain, it is never a sign of weakness or fragility. Those tears are your heart being completely unwilling to abandon something it recognizes as sacred, and that represents a rare kind of faithfulness. Most people find a quick reason to walk away when things get this hard and uncertain, just to protect themselves before they can get hurt any further. It would have been so easy for you to shut down, to build a thick wall, and to decide that loving this deeply was just a liability that you could not afford. So many people get hurt or left waiting for long enough that they eventually go quiet and close themselves off because the price of caring feels too high. You had every possible justification to make that same choice, and absolutely nobody in the world would have blamed you for doing so. Yet you stayed open when closing was the easier path, and you stayed soft when hardening your heart was right there as a simple option. In a world that constantly rewards people for being guarded and detached, your refusal to go that route is a powerful form of armor, not a sign of vulnerability. Loving completely without constantly calculating the return is an incredibly rare foundation from which a lasting, healthy love is actually built. You chose to stay, to feel, and to keep caring when outer circumstances gave you every reason to walk away and close the door, and that is everything. To love someone through the confusion, through the distance, through those seasons where nothing is clear and the silence stretches on for a long time. And to do it without letting it make you bitter takes something that cannot be faked. You either have that capacity or you do not. And I am telling you that you do. That is not a small thing about you. It might actually be the most important thing about you. It is precisely that quality that is leading you somewhere real. You are not headed toward a relationship that keeps you permanently off balance, always trying to read between the lines, always wondering where you stand, and always bracing yourself for the next moment of uncertainty. You are not headed toward a love that makes you feel like your emotions are somehow too big or too much for the person you are with. You are headed towards something that actually fits, something that does not require you to manage yourself down or dim any part of who you are just to keep the peace. You are headed toward a love that feels the way a deep breath feels after you have been holding tension in your chest for way too long. It is coming, and you are becoming the person who is ready to hold it. That is not just a poetic way of looking at things. That is genuinely where this is going if you continue to follow the path I am about to describe to you. So, what does that actually look like in your daily practice? What do you do today, tomorrow, and in the days that follow with all of these complicated feelings? Here is the most important and most difficult part of the process, and I'm not going to dress it up to make it sound simpler than it really is. You have to turn toward yourself deliberately, consciously, and with real intention. This is not about performing a version of moving on, nor is it a way of punishing them or sending a secret signal or playing a long, calculated game. Genuinely and honestly, you need to redirect the energy you have been spending on them and bring it all the way home to yourself. You need to start asking yourself a question that perhaps you have not asked in a long time. It might even feel a little strange to say these words out loud. What do I actually need right now? Stop asking what they need or what you could do or say or become that might finally shift the balance between you. Stop wondering what would make them come back or open up or finally understand the depth of what you feel. Instead, focus entirely on yourself. What would feel good to you today? What part of your own life have you been neglecting because you were so hyper-focused on something that was always just slightly out of your reach? You need to start filling those empty spaces. You need to start saying yes to yourself with at least a fraction of the same enthusiasm you have been giving to everyone else. The things you have been putting off because you were waiting for your life to feel more settled first are the things you should start doing right now. The friendships you let drift a little because your emotional energy was entirely consumed by this one situation need your attention again. Reach back toward those people. The parts of your personality that you put on a shelf because you were so absorbed in this situation need to be taken back down and dusted off. None of this is about pretending the love is not there, and none of it is about forcing yourself to feel something you do not, or trying to stop feeling something you do. It is simply about expanding your life back out to its full size so that you are not living in a small, cramped room built entirely around one person and one specific outcome. And here is what happens when you genuinely start doing that. Something shifts in how you carry yourself. It is not a dramatic overnight transformation. It is much quieter than that, but it is entirely real. You stop feeling like an incomplete sentence that is waiting for its ending. You stop feeling like you are in a perpetual, exhausting holding pattern as if your life cannot truly begin until this particular connection resolves itself. You start feeling like a whole person again, someone whose life has real weight, color, and forward motion, regardless of what any one relationship is or is not doing at the moment. And that feeling of being deeply grounded, that sense of being rooted in your own existence rather than suspended in the uncertainty of someone else, is powerful. It changes your entire presence. The people around you will feel it in ways they might not even be able to articulate. There is a specific, undeniable quality to someone who is genuinely at home in themselves, and it is magnetic in the truest sense of that word. It draws things toward it, rather than chasing after them. And the person you have been loving through all of this will feel it too, perhaps more than anyone else. they will notice the difference. This is not a strategy or a trick, and I want to be really clear about that. Because the last thing I want is for you to hear this as some kind of manipulative technique to get a specific outcome. It is not. It is simply the truth of what happens when someone stops relating to another person from a place of desperate lack and starts relating from a place of personal fullness. The whole dynamic between you begins to breathe differently. There is finally room for something genuine to happen that could not happen before. Now, I want to talk about them for a moment, because I think there is something you might need permission to understand. They are not the villain in any of this story. I know there have probably been moments where the hurt made it tempting to see them that way, where the distance or the silence or the inconsistency made you want to write a cleaner, easier story where someone is clearly in the wrong. But they are not a cold person, and they are not someone who is simply indifferent to you. What you have been reading as cold distance is actually something much more complicated than that. It is the behavior of someone who, somewhere along the way, likely long before you ever showed up in their life, came to understand love as something dangerous. They learned that love is something that costs more than you can afford, and something that opens you up to a level of pain that is not worth the risk. They did not decide this consciously, as no one ever does. It gets built into you by the experiences that shape you before you are even old enough to name what is happening. And so, what looks to you like them pulling away is actually just them desperately managing a fear that has been with them for a very long time. They think about you in the quiet spaces between their daily distractions, when it is silent enough that they cannot avoid what is actually going on inside their own heart. You are there. They feel the absence of your energy, even in the moments when they are the ones who created that absence. There is a tension in them around you that does not go away just because they are not in contact with you. Because what they feel is not really about proximity. It is about something much deeper that they have not finished working through yet. And that unfinished work is not yours to do for them. You cannot do it for them, no matter how much you want to, no matter how clearly you can see what they need, and no matter how much love you are willing to offer as a kind of bridge to get them through it. That is their road to walk alone. What you can do, the one genuinely powerful thing available to you here, is to refuse to let their fear write the story of your worth. You must refuse to absorb their unresolved pain as evidence of something lacking in you. You have to hold yourself with such genuine dignity and such steady love that when they do finally move through what has been holding them back, what they encounter is you at your absolute fullest.